Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Okay. I would like to begin by considering this recording to be a report pretty much one human being wants to brief the species on his findings, and this is something that in the future we will all do, but I guess one person has to start it. I wanted to take this moment to speak about a way I have experienced life, certain things to keep in mind. 1, I'm a sci-fi writer. 2, I am Muslim. 3, I'm a visual thinker. What is important to discuss is how I, as a human being, have found a similarity between feeling pretty much, I guess let me start from here. As a human being, I am seeing an existential condition. What is motivating me Alright, the ad's finished. So, pretty much I want to say, just like you feel the warmth of a campfire when I am consciously existing in the world, sometimes based on how I pay attention to the world, there is a warmth. There is a feeling of the moment being alive.
I'm a hungry individual. I want to grow. I want to learn. I came across the Google career.
Ya Allah, چی بگم? What can I say? Oh God. Pretty much it's my observations on human life. The context has shifted. We're no longer on a rock in the middle of nowhere, just the species that made everything up. We are a human species present in a world, and there's an intelligence administering this world. You are inside a system that's being administered. Now, how is it being administered? This is where the limitations of man become fascinating. How do you acknowledge your life as a human being? Well, at least you get to hear one person. You get to see how one person is acknowledging. I acknowledge a level of body, a level of existence. The body is less mysterious than the mind and soul. The body is viewable. I can view my body. I can actually touch my body with my body and notice that I've touched it. But when it comes to the mind is not something you can touch. You hear me? You can't touch your mind because the mind is not physical. The mind is more like how there's an ability to see different versions of reality while we're being in a version of reality. I'll explain the mind, but there is also the soul. Now, you might be secular and be like, what do you mean soul, bro? And I will tell you, there are different traditions. I'm someone who probably is, I've studied this, I can tell you. When I was spiritual, my soul or me was the main event. And before I had come into terms through an experience with the presence of a creator, you don't believe it, but it's like there's an intelligence here that if you connect to, you go with the flow of the administration of events. There is a system admin. The system admin has a decree. There is an authority. I feel this world is designed to assist us in succeeding with the test of realizing that there is God here. If you look at it from a theological lens, Adam and Eve forgot that God was there, and they made the mistake. So the test that we failed was just because we do not see God does not mean God is not watching. Just because we don't see an admin to this world doesn't mean it doesn't have one. It makes more sense that worlds tend to have owners. If the smallest parts of existence, considering us, we have come into the sense of ownership as intelligence, really the separation of the identity from the world is really where the story of life is beginning. So, what I'm trying to tell you here is I'm speaking to you. This might sound hilarious, but I want to, at least in this moment, for this moment, speak to you as if you're a soldier. As if, imagine there were 8 billion souls, great creations of God, fine equipment, fine technology. And so now that we are here, it's very important we don't ignore the main event. This is your briefing. Pretty much, you're going to exist for some time to get a sense of yourself. You're going to notice all human beings, their attentions seem to be divided between self, world, and others. Most people right now, as I'm speaking, they're either thinking about themselves, they're thinking about others, or they're thinking about the world. The act of prayer is in some sense for a being that is interested for more than just these levels of engagement. Of course, there is a role we are here to play. Think of it this way. There is already a force in command. Oh. And in the loneliness of our existence, we exist to our own mind, which can fathom pathways of meaning. But to want to live a life that is more than what your body did and more than how your mind happened. You see, it is about a walk. The fascination of your world, to recognize that your natural place, to play your role, to play your part. And even though you might have become an observer of divine decree, yet the divine decree happens in all, for all. Really, the story of humanity is the story of seeking power as an individual, and then realizing that there is a power that surpasses the individual. There is an administrative force that surpasses the cultural program that you are acting through. It surpasses the national setting you're in. It surpasses the stories, you know, you have in some sense worn, like clothing you have found. It's the effort. You know, I wonder what I am. I ask myself, am I the idea I have of myself now? And I know far better that I can never be that. The ideas we have on ourselves is very similar to the statement that this fictional game character says, that says hope is the armor of fools. You know, there's a fragility to life. There are moments where you look at it and you wonder why you're looking at it. You wonder why you're here. It is the power of existence. To acknowledge God does not mean you have to be an ancient person. With the same simplicity, if you were invited to somebody's house, you would in some sense go there in their house, not being like, this isn't your house, you don't exist. You show respect and honor. In this world, we are in some sense guests. To me, you know, like when like my soul is attending an event. A part of me is tired. You know, what's tiring is that the mind can see something more advanced, but the body is stuck in the place that's not more advanced. And when the mind tries to access the more advanced, it discovers that in some sense there is the life of the soul. So think of it this way, you start articulating yourself as an objective being and you're like, something doesn't make sense here. And you're like, oh yeah, you know, there's physical existence, there's movements, but what it means is not physical. Have you been told this? Meaning is not physical. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hey امین جابر انصاری، چیکار میکنی؟ We have to in some sense work with some sort of, just like Michelangelo saw the angel in the stone and set it free, the human being is being given the existential view, the value proposition that there is an existence. And in some sense, how we interact with existence suggests what we made out of it. What we made out of it suggests its value, the value of our life. For me, I pretty much have this attitude that we cannot ignore the system admin anymore. So if we are, as a human species, to build an advanced civilization, the advanced civilization would in some sense be a service to the admin. It would be as if a praise. So a religious advanced civilization would in some sense be as if the creatures of that world lived for the very beginning, for the creation, for the God that was uncreated, the God that was uncaused. We honor that which is beyond the world as if that is where we are from. You know, I look at human beings. I see these creatures walking around in the streets. And I ask myself, what are they looking for? And it's hilarious because it's like there's this inner life of filled with expectations and texture and you know specifications, right? So we're all, it's as if we are all in a life, but being something is not enough. So we're all trying to become something, but in our efforts to become something, there are certain things that are authorized and unauthorized, right? So I don't know if this is a privilege or what it is. At first I thought it was a bit weird, but it makes sense to me that as a human being, in the path of an awareness of what really the spirit is and the soul is, I came to this realization that behind the scenes, that means, think of it this way, that this world right now is like a film set. And you're an actor and the director is not on set, but the director is seeing the scene, right? Seeing the stage, right? And so you're in some sense there acting, and suddenly you begin to realize, like, oh my God, it's an act. You start to realize that there is an authority that you are actually performing for a director that's not in the story you're in, right? So for me, it's very fascinating because the human life is a conditional situation, but upon discovering the unconditional, we in some sense submit the conditional. So it's like this thing that when do you, like, let's say you're a soldier, right? And let's say, okay, this is a ridiculous metaphor, but I think it will work. Let's say there's 8 billion soldiers, all human beings on earth, they're all soldiers right now. So, going towards God is equivalent to like this soldier which has had training to use its weapon, has been given a weapon, has gone on the battlefield and realized there was no war. Okay? And so the submission towards the creator is equivalent of like putting down your ego like a weapon. Because let me tell you what it is. It's pretty much designed that you are allowed to be yourself until you reach a point where you see there are limitations to self. So think of it this way. There are forces in this life guiding man to see beyond himself. There are forces in this life guiding mankind to in some sense see beyond others. Right? That means we're not in the game of worshiping ourselves. We're not in the game of worshiping others, other people. Yo, that guy knows. Let's all do what he does. No. It's the direct experience that makes it real. So anyways, how did I come to this moment where I felt there was a warmth? You know what it is? It's a different warmth. It's a different sense of temperature. Right? Like there's a temperature, like you go from a cold day, you go inside into a warm room, like there's that. But then there's just this thing that you just notice you're here. You notice that there's intelligence active. You notice there is something happening. And aren't you privileged to be part of the viewer of the movement of this world? Right? Like I look at plants, I look at rocks, like I'm looking at this car beside me, like there's so many things that they do not have the privilege to notice where they are, yet we notice where we are and we suffer, but we don't notice completely where we are, and that's why we suffer. You see, the notion of God is not to get you to get attached to an idea that is worldly. It is in some sense to make you realize that the soul is not, can't be God. This, you did not design this world. That's why you're here, to notice that. It's like, wait a minute, are you telling me that I shouldn't act like I own the world if I didn't create the world? You got it. Oh, humanity. You know, I truly wanted to build an advanced civilization, and a part of me still feels it's going to head that way. But now that I have faith, it's like faith replaced the impatience of how my temporary life was not enough. That fear I had of, oh my God, okay, if I die, in some sense, like, who else is going to see to say anything at all? You might not believe it, guys, but for the longest time, I felt responsible for all of us. Simply because I'm in a position that I'm alive now. You see, you reach a certain point, you know, that we have a lot of things of what happens if you go towards the path of evil. And the answer is you get power, but you get power plus punishment. But if you go with the path of good intent, what you get is as if the world is like, wait a minute, the whole world, imagine God, the intelligence of the world is like, God's like, wait a minute, this guy is noticing more than himself. He is seeing beyond the box that he did not believe himself to be. You are boxed by yourself. Why do you think they say you are your greatest enemy? Why are there in so many shows the character beats all the opponents, the last boss is his shadow self? He has to defeat himself, and the only way he can defeat himself is by not fighting. You cannot fight a mirror. You can just stop breaking things. You know, a part of me wants to take the coward's way out. You know what the coward's way out is? The coward's way out is like, it's too big, it's none of my business, who cares, I'm gonna enjoy. That's legit being like in a battlefield and then being like, yo man, forget the flying bullets, I'm gonna get some tan from the sun, right? It's like fucked up. You know, this might be bizarre, but I am so happy that I was blessed to notice God. You know why? Because I was getting bored of myself. I have been bored of myself and others and this world for some time. Right? And whether the boredom is because of my own inability to access, or just the lack of passion, you know, it's like it's not enough. It's not enough. How are we all acting like this is enough? Is it enough to have fucking squares everywhere as buildings? Like, think about some things, guys. Think about how some systems may never change. For example, the traffic light system. Unless we have flying cars. You know, it feels like we're in a world that we should have an incredible access to. Did you know there's moments where I get scared? I don't get scared, like I don't get scared from the outer realms of now. Like I don't get scared now, but I get scared of how bizarre it is to, in some sense, run for a few seconds on an infinite treadmill. That is the human life, it seems. So it seems more than life is like, yo man, become a rich immortal. Boring! I am telling you, worldly power is limited to imaginable activity. You know what that means? That means if you want something imaginable to happen, then do it yourself, you piece of shit. Imaginable is limited to worldly. You know? God gives the unimaginable. You see, it's like God is like the neat freak's perfection. You know, it's the only thing, you know, considered to be perfect in an imperfect world. You know, I'm going to say some strange things right now. Simply because in this moment, I have no friends. And I need to get this shit out. There's moments I get scared and I go into an existential panic of how bizarre it is. More than life is meaningless, it's more like your mind gives you access to infinite perception. So it's like you have a keychain in your hand with infinite keys, right? And there's infinite doors. And so we're trying to figure out, at some point you realize the instrumentation of our position is not enough to completely understand our position. You know? A part of me wants to see the best of humanity all the time. It's like we can't go extinct without giving it all, giving it our all. And the only way is to acknowledge the admin. So I'm like this guy who's like, all right, system admin, all right, whatever force is here. 8 billion human beings are here. Each have different conditioning, different programs. Yet what is one thing they can unify under? We cannot unify in the world over the world. It's only from that which is beyond the world we can unify over. Oh man. I guess the warmth of the moment is is in some sense feeling that you might, there's so many things lacking. But what's perfect about the moment is that we're in attendance. It's as if I am somewhere, in some world, in some system, systematically going forth, wondering what our role is. It's like the cells in our, imagine the red blood cells in your body. One of them's like, I want to get enlightened and become a person. It's as if, nah, dog, you got to play your role. You got to play your role. Thank you for listening, guys. And become fascinated with the moment. There's a system admin to work with. Every person individually needs to connect. There's a private server, public server. Your public server, when it comes to your inner realms, let go, let God. When it comes to your outer realms, let go, let God, but also function with the administration capabilities you have. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. The system admin knows. Thank you.